Hello, everyone. This is Coach Tim Campsall, and I'm excited to have a fellow business owner with us today. Something unique about my guest is he helped to develop what is still the state of the art in disposable diaper leg closures back in the 80s. And his claim to fame is it was that he was the best at keeping the poop in. We'll have him explain that a little bit more here in a couple of minutes. In his downtime, he likes to spend time with his family, as well as snow skiing and hiking. And he's most proud of being married for 37 years. Wow, that is awesome. As well as working with his two adult sons to help men love and serve Jesus. It is my pleasure to welcome Bill to the show today. Hi, Bill.
Hey, what's happening, Tim?
I am awesome, thank you. Hey, Bill, let's start with having you introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us your full name as well as a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born and live and about your family.
Sounds good. My name's William Joseph Moore, and I was born in Bitburg, Germany, on an Air Force base. My dad was in the Air Force, my biological dad, and so grew up there till I was two, and then our family moved to Texas, and ultimately ended up in the Chicago area. So I've got a wife of 37 years and two sons that they each have kids. So got five grandkids, and we all live in Carmel, Indiana, right now. Attend church, College Park Church, and we run Heart of a Man, which is a ministry to help men grow. So that's kind of my life right now. That's it in a nutshell. And I'm building a house, so that's that's
Oh,
taking a lot of
wonderful.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fun. So tell us about the diapers.
yeah, that's a great story. So when somebody says, "Hey, tell me something funny about you," that's certainly one of them. I was a chemical engineer at University of Wisconsin, graduated, went to work for Procter and Gamble, and they put me in the R&D group of Pampers. And the big problem with disposable diapers at that time was they leaked, and it leaked the wrong kind of stuff, right? They didn't. Moms weren't so bad with a little urine, but when the poop came out, they were pretty upset by it. So our task was to take and keep that poop in the diaper, not let it get out. And so we worked hard at that. And over the course of 5 years, we got that down to a where it was a very significant reduction in amount of poop that would come out of a
Yeah,
diaper during nighttime or whatever time it was.
yeah.
And so that's the funny part of the story. And my first trip to I was a Bible study fellowship teaching leader, and when you go to San Antonio for training, it's very much a women's ministry, and they let the guys come be part of it. And so there's 50 women in there and five men, and they ask you to tell the girls something about yourself. And I told that story of the disposable diapers. The moms in the room were all happy, and I said, and by the way, my initials are BM, and that was kind of my job, as I was Mr. BM. And they didn't like that. Like I got a lot of trouble for saying that kind of stuff in a very religious setting. And so I think that's funny. I laugh because I'm like, it's so not bad, but why did people
Yeah,
get so upset by
right.
it?
Yeah, yeah. So it was the poop team.
That was a poop team, man. That's what we were.
That's awesome. Well, I don't think we chatted about this before, but I spent some time at SC Johnson, so there was some friendly competition
There
between
was.
your team and my team.
Yeah, that's so true.
So, Bill, besides the poop story, what's a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us today?
Oh wow, that's a great question. What are the goofiness? I think what my family loves about me is I'm very engaged with I'm very outgoing, very fun loving. We do a lot together. It's very active, but I tend to like to make names for everybody. And sometimes the names are good and sometimes they're not good. As my sons have little kids now, they get frustrated with some of the names. And so it's a funny thing. We all laugh about it. It's like, okay, dad's going to come up with some stupid name for my kid, and it's really not helpful. It's not going to make them. So like we have a granddaughter named Ruby, And so in my brain, I see rub like
Uh,
rub a piece of soap. And
yeah,
so I said, "Hey, it's Rubby," and everyone's like, "No, that's a bad
yeah.
name," But then they laugh. They're like, "Of course you came up with some
Yeah, right.
stupid name, right?" So so that's what people think are funny
Grandpa's
about.
gonna scar them for life with his
Exactly.
name.
Yeah, give them some really bad name that nobody wants their kid to have, and the kids are going to make fun of them and all that. And it's like, okay, all right, I got to stop doing that. So I've been banned from giving names to the kids. So
So, Bill, I know you've had a number of experiences in terms of business ownership. And today we want to talk about your ministry. So, tell us how did it come about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run businesses, and in particular this one?
yeah, I mean, the business we ran in Chicago started because my stepfather died and my mom needed help, and so that it just drew me in, and so and I spent 32 years working in manufacturing, working with primarily men and a lot of broken men. Manufacturing, you got a white collar group of people that work for you, but the bulk of the people that work in your plants are blue collar, and life is just as challenging for them as it is for anybody. And so I got very much engaged in the lives of men at a very early stage in my life. And at the same time that was happening, I came to Christ. I came to know Jesus, and I joined a church almost simultaneously as I started off into business on my own. And that part of my life, when I joined church, I was immediately drawn to men's ministry.
Hmm.
And I think all of that together landed on this place when my dad left our family. And so I was 2 years old, dad left, mom abandoned our family. And so I grew up without a father in essence. And so I had a heart for guys that didn't have a father. I had a heart to be around men. I wanted to be around men. I wanted to know how to be a father. I liked the manliness of being around men, and so I was very drawn to that because it was a hole in my heart. And so that started not only in the workplace but also in my church. And so then I had 32 years of just working in that kind of space. And when it was we moved to Indianapolis, we started meeting some young guys here that all needed coaching. They needed dads in their life. And so I became a bit of like a father to the fatherless to guys here in Indianapolis. And my sons were just having a similar experience where they were having a hard time meeting people and here in Indy, and they saw there was no real strong men's programs here. And I grew up with strong men's programs, and they were like, "Dad, we need to start something for men here in Indy. Let's do it together." And I said, "Heck yeah, I'll do that all day long." And so that's really what fueled our desire to launch Heart of a Man, was this desire to help my sons and to help the young guys that were all their age, that were lonely and isolated and just struggling to meet their wives and all those kinds of issues. What do I do with my career? And so then they could see, hey, I had a heart for that, and I was reaching a lot of guys already doing that. And they're like, hey, let's formalize this. Let's make this something substantial and build on all of your strengths in this space. And so it was really my son's encouraging me to launch with them, and so that's what got us off the ground. So
Very cool. That is amazing. So tell us more about the ministry. What's the name again? What do you guys do?
yeah, so it's called Heart of a Man, and so we learned a lot of what we do in Bible study from Bible Study Fellowship. So again, that was a place where the Bible Study Fellowship, I was involved of it as a young Christian man, and they came to me and said, "Hey, we want to open a class in Chicago. Would you be willing to do that?" And so I had that entrepreneurial skill set in me from business, and so launching a men's class in Chicago just felt like that's what I should do. And so we did that, and they gave me a lot of training on how to structure men's Bible study. And so that's really that's our base pad. We've got 320 guys that come to Bible study every Tuesday night. And we write our own lessons, and then we lecture on the topics, but we study the Bible And then we allow that platform to be a place where we bring men together to address the deficits that they have relationally.
Mm,
And so, because everybody, all the guys have relational deficits that we're dealing with, and they're causing lots of different problems, whether that's with Jesus or their marriage or with their
right.
dad,
Right.
or with friends or at workplace. They just have these deficits. And so when we start working that in the setting of Bible study, we've been able to make a lot of traction in terms of replacing false narratives with the truth of God's word in
Mm,
a setting that's safe, and it's men working together. And so it's been really functional way to get those men healthy and healing, and in a place where it's not our truth, it's God's truth, right? We're not making it up as we go. We're not following Dr. Phil or Oprah or whatever. We're listening to the guy who made us, which is God, and getting instruction on how to heal. And so that's basically what we do. So,
wow.
yep.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Bill, we know that successful businesses get stuck at various stages of their
Yeah.
growth journey. So, um, from either of your businesses' experience, tell us about your biggest challenge over the years of being a business owner and someone who helped you through that.
Yeah, which is crazy because I'm having a similar issue in the nonprofit as I had in the for-profit business. So one of my first plateaus I hit, well, I mean, one of the first challenges I met at my other businesses, my first plant burned to the ground, a fireman died. I mean, that was
Oh,
huge. I mean, it was a large 250,000 square foot building, burns to the ground. Everything we own's destroyed overnight, and we're starting from scratch. That was the biggest challenge I've ever had to face in the business world. The next plateau I had to overcome was a sales plateau where we hit a certain sales mark, and I'm going to make this number up. It was roughly about $10 million. We got to about that level, and we just could not get past that. And we're having a similar problem at Heart of a Man. Like, we're reaching a lot of men, but we're struggling to figure out how to reach more guys. Like, how do we increase our sales? It's the same
sure,
issue.
sure, yeah,
The church world or the nonprofit world doesn't like to call it sales, but honestly, that's kind of what
yeah,
it is, right? You got to
absolutely,
you got
yeah,
to you got to reach more customers,
yeah.
uh, and so that how do you overcome that? In the first scenario at PacMoore, in our manufacturing company, I brought in believe it or not, I brought in an M&A guy,
Hmm.
a company called Houlihan and Loki, and they came in and talked to me about how to sell a company, and that what they taught me was the the key to a great company that sells well in the marketplace is they have a sales engine, they have a
Yes,
sales process
yes,
that drives the business. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I did all the sales, I handled it all,
yeah.
and I was an engineer. I literally had no idea what the guy was talking about. And he said, if you can build the sales process and engineer it as well as you've engineered your manufacturing process,
Yeah.
this business will be tremendously valuable. So I went on a quest to
Uh-huh.
figure out how to build a sales process, which I accomplished, and ultimately allowed the company to be highly valuable, and made it very sellable. And we're at a similar crossroad right now at Heart of a Man. And it's like, how do we reach more customers? And we've been agonizing over that and working with that and trying to find those same kinds of wise sages that are out there to say, hey, help us, look at what we're doing. And we're been out canvassing the world of men's ministry to see what are other men doing, how have they cracked the nut, what can we learn, what can we
Yeah.
discover. But the key to it is these relationships again. It's You have to go get in relationship with people that see things you can't see. It's like they have vision, they've got eyes on things, and you're blind there, and you've got to get somebody that can see what you cannot see. And so you have to be on a quest to find those kinds of people, and that's what we do. So
I love early in your explanation, said, hey, a nonprofit has to run like a profit. And I know a lot of nonprofits, they don't think that way, right? But it is a
yeah.
business, right? And they have a nonprofit has to be profitable in order to put the money back into the ministry, right?
That's right. It's so true. And the people that invest in that, they call them donors in this world, right? And it's like, but in my mind, it's an investor. It's not a donor.
Right.
And so that investor is still looking at you like they would at their other investments. Are you giving them a return?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
return isn't just souls or head count. It's economic return. Are you accomplishing the economics to keep it sustainable that
Yeah.
made their investment worth the call, you know? And so my mind feels that. I think that makes us valuable as nonprofit guys because we do have that sense of responsibility to the investor,
Mhm.
and the responsibility to the consumer, you know, to deliver a quality product and it's on time, that meets their need is better than anything else. I think that just gives us a bit of an edge. I hate to say that, but I think we have an edge over what the typical. I think the churches struggle in this space. I think if they would put their young leaders in business for a while, then bring them back to ministry, I think they'd be more effective. And I'm probably wrong, but I
Well,
sense that,
I
you
would
know.
imagine just building on so you talked about developing the sales process similar to the way you had your manufacturing process, right? So the efficiencies, the natural way that you think about business and efficiencies and effectiveness, right? Putting that into a nonprofit world, right there, it makes sense, right? The more efficient you can be, the more money left to serve people. Right?
Yeah. And the quality of what you produce, you know, you were at SC Johnson, and you know, I mean, you know, you just don't make a good product. You make an excellent product. You don't just, you have to meet the customer demand better than the competitor. You won't have a business, right? And so that just gets ingrained in your soul. And so you're always like, how do I do what I'm doing better and meet the needs of my consumer better? You just can't get that out of your DNA. And I think God kind of loves that, right? It's like, so you're making it so that men know me better. Thank you. I like that. I appreciate that. Right? I don't think he's gonna frown on that and be like,
Right?
wait, selfish, you know? So yeah,
So, Bill, I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you to
please.
pick three people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for them being there to help with your business's growth. So, who are those three people and how they help you?
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna reference both businesses again because they have very similar parallels. The for-profit business, there was a guy, there was an R&D guy named Tom that helped me figure out how to create products that I could sell from garbage. And that was pivotal in our business. Like it was critical to us accomplishing what we did. And then we had a sales guy that came along. And when that got serious about sales, I figured out I needed somebody to lead that. And
Sure.
I met the first guy in my life that knew how to sell and it was really good at it, understand the process. That was a game changer. I remember we got our first $1 million account, one account,
Wow.
because this guy knew how to do that. And it was a game changing moment. It opened my eyes to that whole world and I needed to see. And then the last was my operations guy, a Hispanic guy named Javier. And he gave his life to what we did. Like he just poured his heart and soul into everything we did. He believed in me and he believed in us. And so those three people were critical. And then I think without those guys, you know, and not realizing and understanding how crucial they were, if I had not had them and sought them and brought them in, we never would have made it. It just
Mm,
never would have happened. And in Heart of a Man, right now it's my sons. You know, I have two sons and they're both gifted in very different ways and we won't launch without them. We wouldn't succeed without them. We wouldn't have done the things we've done without them. It just wouldn't happen. And then we had a partner at our church, College Park Church, our senior pastor, Mark Vogrup. That partnership was vital. Like we had to have somebody that said, I believe in you.
yeah.
I believe you guys can do this. I believe that you will make a difference in the lives of men. And if that guy's not there, we're nobody, right? We aren't going anywhere at that point, Tim. So my two sons and Mark were absolutely critical to the launch of what we do, right? So guys that can execute and keep the dream and see it and move it, and then somebody that says, "I'll buy what you're selling," you know.
Yeah.
So
Love that.
yeah,
Yeah. Bill, the path to building a successful business has a lot to do with our mindset. Um, so what's one of your biggest learnings as a business owner over the years?
yeah. You know, this sounds churchy, but I mean, I can't say it any other way. Faith in Jesus is critical. I mean, you know, and I know there's lots of successful businesses that don't have Christian guys, and I get that, you know, but my faith did something that I think is critical to every business, and that it changed my mind from objectives, goals, data, numbers, results to people.
Mm,
It moved my heart from it's about getting results to it's about building and shaping the lives of the people that work with
Wow,
you
wow.
and for you. And without my faith driving that,
Mm,
that ever would have happened. I literally was sitting reading and having to teach on Leviticus 19, and it said, "Do not harvest your fields to the edges, leave it for the poor and aliens in your midst." And that scripture transformed our company because I heard God say, "You're exploiting the people, you're not caring for them." And I was broken, absolutely broken by that.
wow.
And it changed me dramatically. And I completely switched our entire business model, hired chaplains, and made the focus of our company the growth of our employees and loving and caring for our customers, And so, and that I believe is what God then said, "Okay, I'll honor that. I'll bless that. And on that, I will build a successful company. So, yeah,
So even your for-profit was a ministry.
it always was. Yeah, it was. I mean, honestly, when I left Procter and Gamble to help my mom, I wasn't a believer. I didn't believe in Jesus. I knew who he was. But the fifth commandment says, "Honor thy father and mother.
Mm.
If you do, it will go well with you in the land that I've given you." It's the only commandment with a promise. I didn't know that when I did that. When I looked back, I said, wow, I honored my mother. And God, in his providence, said, "I'll bless you because you lived up to that command and you didn't even know it."
Wow.
Right. And so, again, the scripture comes alive and you're like, God is faithful even when I'm not and I don't even know him. And so, a man without God in business is working with a quarter of what he's got available to him, right? He's got all of the universe available to him when he's got God at his side, and it opens his heart up to the people that he loves and cares for the people. And I think that's the game changer in business. So,
What's one piece of advice, Bill, that or guidance that you would give a business owner who's either feeling stuck or discouraged about where they're at in their business?
yeah, this is a great question. I think one of the most important things I ever did is I joined a CEO group, and I can tell you, I started with Vistage,
Mm,
and then I was in it a year, and I really liked the guys in there, but I was lacking the Christian piece. It lacked the
mm,
spirit and the faith and the godliness that I wanted in my business. So I switched over to a group called Convene, and now they have a competitor called C12, but I would honestly, if a guy's stuck, I would say join one of those CEO groups because you immediately get placed with a group of about six of your peers
mm.
with different business sizes. And they are faith-based dudes and men and women, and they can help you get so unstuck so fast. And you've got a coach there working with you. 8 hours a month, you're with these people, and they are pouring into your business. They're watching what you do, and they're there to help you. Man, that is a game changer for me. I would just say every CEO should be in one of those kinds of groups. It's absolutely critical. So that's how you get unstuck, right? So, and for me, it was a Christian one because I needed to hear God speak, not just some guy.
Yeah.
I didn't just want some Harvard guy telling me what to do. It's no, I want to know it's from God. I want to know this is God's counsel, not yours, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Bill, as you think about the next year, where is an area that you're currently stuck or that you know you need to sort out in order to achieve your long-term goals?
Yeah, and it's another great question, but for us, it's how do we reach more men, right? And it sounds trite, but I think every company is the same. It's like how do we increase sales, right? Like how do we expand our reach? And for us, we want to reach more men, and we're a bit stuck on that. We've been praying about that. We've been working on that. We just met a guy for lunch right before I got on this call with you, and he helped us see that in a way we had not seen before. And so again, it's this idea of these relational wells, right? We have these relationships that we go to, and they're like a well, and we draw out from them
Yeah.
when we need things. And so when you're a wise Christian man, you dig wells in your life of relationships that bring you life. And this guy named Dennis is one of those guys, and he runs a Heart of a Man class near here, and we reached to him for health and for life and for help, and he helped us see that. But reaching more men is our biggest challenge. Like we want to reach men, but we also want to get deep. We don't want just width, we want depth. And a lot of people just want to reach a lot of people, but they don't really care if it goes deep, and we really care that it goes deep. So we want to get wide and we want to get deep, and that's a big challenge for us. So
And you've alluded to it a couple of times, but I imagine that, marketing for, participants in your program is it's the same, but it's also very different than traditional marketing. Is that a fair understanding?
It is because, where do you market? Where do you present your case? In business, it was easy because we had conferences, we had trade journals, there was just a lot of venues to position yourself so people could see you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this nonprofit world isn't like that. It's kind of an invisible world that runs underneath the engine of churches, and even churches are, I would say, very poorly marketed. Honestly, I mean, most people don't really know about them, and so the key to this whole space is person to person. It's man to man, and we've learned. You change the life of men's one man at a time, and you bring a guy, and I bring a guy, and so we have to. It's guerrilla marketing, right? And
Yeah.
it's like I have to connect with you, and I have to learn how to teach men how to reach men, right? And it's one guy at a time, and
Yeah.
that's the secret, because I will go with you if you ask me.
Yeah.
When you invite me, I'm on this because you invited me, Tim.
Yeah.
You reached out and said, "Would you do this?" And I said, "I want to help you. I like you, and I want to help you." So because you invited me, but if you just send me a broadcast text or an email or marketing, I would have never touched it. I would have said, "No way."
Yeah.
But I ran into you at the Gospel Coalition. You guys were like, "Hey, we really could use your help, and we want you to jump in with us." And it was like, "Okay, I feel connected to that. That's good." And I think that's just the way it is. Guerrilla marketing, one man at a time. So yeah.
What about I'll call them, strategic partners. So are there, I guess in your world, it could be a church. So is that also an opportunity where a church invites their people to be part of what you're doing?
Yeah, it really is. But what we're discovering is that there are men's organizations that are reaching to these places, but it's it's a guy that's kind of a seed emptor, right? He's somebody that's a catalytic guy, he's an influencer that goes and grabs guys. He's the type of guy that says, "Hey, come do this," and
Okay.
he can get guys involved. And so those guys are more important than the church guy. The church is so programmatic, and guys don't tend to go to church. I mean, 10% of men are in church. It's a very low number.
Right.
So it's while the church thinks there's a lot of men at church, that's not true. And so how do you reach those other 90% of the guys that don't go to church? Well, somebody's got to get out and get to them, and it's typically that kind of a guy. There's a guy that's like that, that's very gregarious, energetic, outgoing, and you've got to start to connect with those guys. We call them influencers or seed
Yeah.
empters, and you've got to be around more of those kinds of guys, and then they get out and they start moving men into these
Yeah.
places. And so those are the key partnerships, more so than the church is. The church
Yeah.
isn't really that strong of a partner, honestly. It's these other organizations or men in particular that are influencers that are more important. You see it in social media a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
people tend to follow those kinds of people, and
Mhm.
that's just a good picture of what it is like for us too. We have to
Yeah.
find those people, and so
Yeah.
my oldest son Taylor is particularly good at that, and he's good at finding those people and connecting with them. He's an aggregator,
Yeah.
and so that's what's really helped us grow, honestly. So.
Back in my corporate world, we would pay companies to find us influencers. Does this work the same way? Like, are there resources that can find those people for you?
It's like there very likely is. Absolutely. I would completely agree with that. There's people that are out there that are speaking to the hearts of men, that are influencing, and guys are very much drawn to that. So yeah, there's no doubt about it. And that's at a higher scale
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
and they're definitely out there. I mean, you think about a Jordan Peterson, for example, right? The influence a guy like that has, or Joe Rogan.
Sure.
These guys have guys are listening to them. There's
Yeah.
a lot of men listening to those guys. So if a guy like that mentions you, they're gonna call. They're gonna be on their way to giving you a call. And so yeah, those are great suggestions and a great way to look at it, Tim.
So last question here, Bill. Jim Rohn, an amazing business guru, he once said that we become the average of the five people that we spend the most time with. So As you think about that, what advice do you have for business owners who are feeling overwhelmed or discouraged, but still just trying to figure it out on their own?
Yeah, I can say this to that guy if you're listening to this right now. I was that guy, and I it's lonely. It is lonely, and it hurts sometimes, and it just feels like there's really nobody listening. There's nobody out there that understands what you're going through, and so man, I know how that feels, and it is an awful feeling. The good news is it's not true. You're not alone. And there are a lot of men and women that run businesses just like yours and that have been in the same chair you're in, and they so get you and they want to help you badly. Like they genuinely want to reach out to you and be connected to you and know you and help you. And so just know that, right? There genuinely are people that love business and they love business owners, and they're good people and they care about people, and the first thing you got to convince yourself is that I do need to get help. I
Mm.
need to get help. And I'm not that I'm broken, but that I have so much more to do. I have so much more capacity. I have so much more to give. I have so much more I can do. And there are people that can help you. And you do need it. You need somebody else. You need some people around you. I call them the seven wells, right? That every guy should dig in his life, right? These seven critical relational wells every guy should dig, and you should get about figuring out what those wells are and digging those relational wells and investing in those relationships with other people that will help you, because it will absolutely transform your life and build your business to the place you dream it would be.
Yeah. I can't count how many times I've had a client sit in on a meeting with other clients, go, wow, I can't believe that that person is struggling with that thing too, or did struggle with it. And just a sense of relief of to what you just said, right? I'm not alone. Wow, that like other
Um,
business owners are having the same challenges. Wow, that's a relief.
And that, I mean, you would think Heart of a Man, all we're talking about is spiritual issues or emotional issues. And I can't tell you how many guys really come to Heart of a Man because they want to talk to me about business.
Mm.
You know, they hear me talk about my company and my experience from my business and manufacturing world, and they're like, "Oh, you're going to understand." And I can't tell you how many counseling and coaching meetings I do
Sure.
with guys just to help them figure out what's next. What do you do? How do you do this? You know, and so I love doing that. And certainly, hopefully, if your listeners need a person to call, they'll call me, you know. So
Well, you're making it a safe place, right, for them to be vulnerable.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And I don't charge. I'm not doing this for the money. God paid me when I sold my business.
Mm.
And we gave 25% of it away to the National Christian Foundation so we could help fund a lot of the stuff that we're doing with men. And so I don't need you to pay me, right? I'm here to help. I just want to do what God's called me to do, which is help men find their way, you know, to find the right path. So
I like what you said about, that you're not necessarily broken. It's just that there's more potential in you, right? And I hear that a lot too of, well, I don't want to admit that there's something wrong or that my business isn't where I want it to be, or that I'm
yeah,
struggling because I'm afraid of being judged as broken or not good enough or not
yeah,
worthy.
yeah. And I think you know, that's been one of the craziest things I've experienced, Tim, is meet when I've spent 6 years now, full years working with men full time.
Mm.
So I've pretty much heard everything you could imagine about what is causing men some difficulties in their life. And the number one issue I hear is I'm not enough.
Mm.
When guys hear something in their head, the message they hear most often is I'm not enough. And it pains me because I'm one of those guys. I've spent my whole life trying to be more, you know, and so that's my name, Be More, Bill More, right? And so ironically, I have. That's what I've tried my whole life, is to be more.
Yeah.
And it's like, and God's like, you don't have to do that. I made you enough. I'm enough, and I've given you enough.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be any more than you are. I love you just the way you are. And everything that you have and everything that you are is plenty. It's plenty, and it's good. You know, what you are is good. And guys just don't hear that enough, Tim. They just don't. And so they need somewhere where they're hearing that. And then they can let their guard down and say, wow, okay, Now I can share with you some of the things that I'm afraid of or I'm ashamed of, honestly. I'm embarrassed to share with you. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. Show it. And then you can start making headway, and so I know that feeling of not being enough. I certainly get it. Yeah.
And so for the business owners who are listening to this who feel that, right, that they're not enough, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, that is the key thing is it's an identity issue, right? Like this is getting deep to my identity. Like who am I? Like how do I figure out who I am? And I can't say more clearly that there's only two things you can be. You can be a man of God or you can be a man of the world. There's only two. And you can argue with me all you want, but I've been at this a while and pretty well seen every identity guys have put before me. And there's a man of God. He knows that he's built by God and for a purpose by God, or you can be a man of the world.
Mm.
And then you go pursue that. And that always leads you to I'm not enough and I'm afraid and I'm anxious. But in God's kingdom, God says you are enough. You have everything you need because I have supplied it to you. And you work from a position of plenty and an identity of being one of his sons, and you're valued and you have everything you need. And so that causes you to love and care for people and unite people. The other world divides people because you're always trying to grab more because you don't think you have enough. And that's a position of fear and division, right? And so there's those two kingdoms. And so you have to first decide which kingdom do I want to live in. And when you make that decision, I want to be in the kingdom of God, then that will put you on a path where your identity will start to become clear. And once that's clear, that sense of I'm not enough will leave you. You'll stop hearing that voice and you'll start hearing the voice of God, which says, no, you're my son. In you, I am well pleased. Right. So, yeah.
So Bill, so let's break that down a little bit more. The um, Many of my clients are Christian. Just I'm assuming, right, it's just because I attract, right, fellow believers, but they're not. So they believe, but they're not all the way to what you just described, right, of that identity shift. So
Yeah.
what give me some insight there. What's preventing that further evolution?
And so the question we would ask at that point is there what's the false beliefs that I'm holding, right? So something's in the way of that identity, and it's a set of false beliefs. Well, where did those beliefs come from? And so you have to start getting into settings with relationships that will help you draw out those false beliefs. And those are again different kinds of people. There's people that are wise sages that can help you get a picture of where you're going and what you're doing. And there's these people that are like healers. They can help you, but it's the people you choose to be around that can help you start to challenge those false beliefs. Where are they coming from? Where did they originate? When did you start thinking that the first time? What draws you into that place? And you have to go backwards and explore the beginning of your life and come forward and figure out, when did I start adopting that particular belief? And it always relates to something that happened in your life where some relationship got broken, something traumatic happened, and you adopted this thought pattern, and it got reinforced over and over and over. You have to find the root of that false belief, and then you have to replace it with a truth from God that says that is not true. But you can't do that until you go back and look, and you have to feel the pain of those original experiences. And if you just want to avoid that, you're never going to get that false belief to start happening, and your identity is always going to stay stuck. So that's the
Yeah.
path.
I've been in a mindset program for the last 3 years, and the thinking is very similar. And what I to build on what you're saying, what I learned is that um, we have to we have to make sense of the current situation we're in. So
Yeah,
when that thing happened when we were a kid, the only way to make it make sense was to form that lie.
that's right. And you build up a defense too, right? So you formulate a false belief so that you can understand what happened, and then it protects you from going forward, right? That keeps you safe.
Yes.
And so yeah, it explains it and it protects you. And then you just live in that. And the next time it happens, it reinforces that. You
Yes.
dig in deeper, you add another brick to that wall, and
In
pretty soon
fact,
you
you
got a
start looking for proof, right?
yes,
Or the
absolutely.
way you see the world is now validating that false belief,
False
right? Of,
belief,
yep,
yes.
see, there it is,
There it
there
is.
it is, there it
There it
is.
is. There it is. There it is. Yeah, yeah. And that's what happens. And we all do it. It's a common theme to man. It's a common theme to us men. And you look at guys that are big overachievers, Tom Brady and all these kind of guys that have these massive careers that have reached the pinnacle, and they say, I mean, you saw Scotty Scheffler weeks ago saying, "This is it. I've won all these golf tournaments. This is it. Are you kidding? This is it."
Yeah.
And they all come to that place. And it's like, well, what took you to that place? You were overachieving to prove what to who? Well, you had something in your head telling you had to achieve more. That wasn't God. What is that? Who's talking to you? What's that voice? What's driving that behavior? And so
Yeah.
those kinds of guys, when Scotty Scheffler started asking those questions, you're like, now you're on the right track. Now you're going to start figuring out what's driving me, what's moving this engine that's causing me to have to be the best golfer in the world, right? And it's like, it's not just my ability. There's something else under this engine, because once I got there, I felt totally empty.
Yeah.
That explains why your motive was something very different than the one you're saying we have. And so these are clues we have to help guys to start tackle their false beliefs, so.
And the enemy is very sneaky. So every little opportunity to say, yep, see, look at you are not as good as, you aren't worthy. You are right. Just, hey, look, there's another example, right? What are you thinking trying to become a better version of yourself?
Yeah. You cannot be that. Don't be that. Stop being that way, and if I don't show you here, I'll show you there, right? You're a terrible husband. You're not a good father.
Yeah.
Those are awful. You're not a good friend. You're not the kind of guy people want to listen to. You're not as smart as you think. I mean, it just goes on and on. And like you said, the devil, he knows where all those weak spots are, and he knows what your fear is. And he just keeps playing that tape in your head over and over and over, and you follow. Pretty soon, he's not even talking anymore. It's just you talking to yourself, right?
Just a repeat, right?
Yeah, and it's your own voice. Sounds so familiar. So,
Bill, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people and experiences, and in terms of helping you along your journey. If all those folks that you mentioned earlier and the rest of them that you didn't get a chance to mention were here today on the show, what would you want to say to them?
yeah, thank you for believing in me and loving me enough to tell me the truth.
Mm.
That honestly is it. I mean, I guys with my personality are hard to tell the truth to. So we just are, and so people tend to not say, "Hey, here's what I see. Here's what I'm watching. This is what I observe." And all of those people that loved me enough to look me in the eye and say, I just want to tell you what I see that you're maybe not seeing. And it's going to hurt when I say this, but I need to say it to you. I had just enough of those people in my life, and they're all those key people. They were instrumental in me coming to that place of saying, "Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't see that." And I'm so grateful that they did. That to me is real love, right? That's somebody that loves you. So, yeah. So thank you for all you people that have done that for me, and you know who you are. Thank you for being that way. Yeah.
Very cool. Bill, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Great to be with you, Tim. Lovely, lovely show. Love what you're doing. Keep going.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.